Mr. Leong Mun Wai.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to begin by first saying thank you to our youth. While the growing environmental awareness and advocacy among Singaporeans has not gone unnoticed, it is especially our youth in Singapore and also around the world who have been speaking up tirelessly through movements such as Straw-Free Singapore, Bring Your Own Bottle Singapore, SG Climate Rally, and many more, in the struggle to institutionalize greater environmental protections, a struggle that they should not be having to do it alone. My generation was lucky to grow up playing in longkang, climbing trees, and catching grasshoppers in natural environments. The access to natural ecosystems, flora and fauna, had a very positive physical and psychological impact on our development. Research worldwide has shown a strong link between green space availability and physical and mental health. Moreover, nature provides such intrinsic and spiritual value. The declining opportunities for human-nature interactions has been termed by conservationists as the extinction of experience. The absence of such opportunities today in Singapore bears testament to the cost of solely focusing on economic development and treating GDP growth as the sole indicator of social progress. The recent public discourse on the Ulu Pandan and Clementi Forest confirm again our government's growth priorities. The government continues to zone Clementi Forest for future housing needs, while Ulu Pandan Forest may be slated for deforestation and development sooner. Many other forest patches have already been cleared in recent years, such as in Tengah and Pasir Ris. The government's past strategy was very clear. In order to maintain growth, we need to increase our population size. And we need to clear our forests as a result to house the growing population. We act as if the deforestation of our precious natural green spaces is an inevitability when we actually have other options. The government has engineered high population growth by allowing a high level of immigration over the past 2 decades. Our population grew from 4 million in the year 2000 to 5.7 million in 2019, an increase of 41% over 20 years. This is a compounded average annual growth of 1.7%, which is in line with that of many developing countries facing population pressures now. This population policy is a conscious choice of the government and is not necessarily supported by most Singaporeans. While the government has reduced immigration growth somewhat since 2011 and promises that it has no population target to achieve, it has continued to award about 25,000 new citizenships and 30,000 permanent residencies every year. Even assuming no increase in the non-resident population, the 55,000 new citizens and PRs will increase our population by about 0.8% a year. At that rate, we will reach 6 million people by 2030 and 10 million in 2095. I pause at this juncture to note that population growth is actually not the main driver of the immediate demand for land to build housing. Housing demand depends more on the government policies in the property market. We all know that housing demand in Singapore is largely driven by investment and speculation. This is a result of the many conscious policies of the government to create a sustained increase in housing prices. So the HDB flat is an appreciating asset, and the buoyant property market can contribute to economic growth. While a steady rise in property values is generally good for the economy, we have also created too much housing demand. Many Singaporeans understandably want to leave the wage-earning class and join the property-owning capitalist class to make passive income. And developers would like to have more land to satisfy that demand. On top of this, there's a huge demand from housing from foreign investors who do not even stay in Singapore. If we continue to try to satisfy the strong investment demand for housing as a means to drive economic growth, we will definitely need to remove more of our green spaces. But we need to ask ourselves, is this truly what we want? So long as each Singaporean family has a decent place to call home, should we not restrain housing demand? In fact, evidence is mounting that the current property policies are affecting the future of our younger Singaporeans negatively. The long-term repercussions of having less green spaces in Singapore would affect them even more. It is not sustainable to allow property prices and property demand to continue to go up at the current rate. Before we rush to cut down more of our forest, we should do a comprehensive review of what is a sustainable economy and society to us. Singapore has made great strides in economic growth since independence, moving from third world to first. We have also experienced massive changes during the recent pandemic. It is good time for us to sit down and think carefully about the future direction of our country. Do we want to build a compassionate and sustainable society, or do we want to continue bulldozing through with our current unsustainable strategy of growing through immigration and property value increases? Any discussion on sustainability in our country necessarily entails a discussion in our population growth. Do we want to still pursue high population growth at the cost of our environment? If we choose to hold our population constant at around 5.7 million by only awarding enough new citizenships to maintain but not increase our current population, the pressure on providing more housing will ease immediately. and there is no need to cut down more forest to increase land supply. We should therefore be in no hurry to destroy our forest. Slower population growth offers us a better foundation to pursue our sustainability agenda meaningfully. On that note, I thank the honourable members of the GPC for Sustainability and the Environment for their motion and the 10 proposals that they have put up, which I'm broadly in agreement with. However, there should be mention as to how these piecemeal proposals can be integrated into a future social economic development roadmap. Under Proposal 3, creating a sustainability sector is good in encouraging professionalism. But we must bear in mind that we do not want a lot of auditors and consultants running around who will just impose a lot of additional costs and pressures on other industry sectors. This sustainability sector should be about technology and not regulation. We do not want to be a climate change technology consumer all the time. But the transformation roadmap must make us a technology leader. To that end, I would like to know how the sustainability sector will create more opportunities for our SMEs and more jobs for our Singaporeans. It is also unclear as to how carbon neutral or reducing some of the proposals are. For Proposal 6 on electric cars, for example, has it been conclusively proven that they are carbon neutral under our fossil fuel energy infrastructure? Is there a change in our country's energy strategy? Looking at the bigger picture, our climate mitigation commitments under the Paris Climate Agreement fall far short in comparison to many other countries. Singapore's climate commitments allow for a net increase of emissions up to 2030 and merely promise a slight reduction from a hypothetically projected business-as-usual benchmark. On the other hand, many European countries have committed to a net decrease in emissions, and even China has committed to achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. We hope the 10 proposals are intended to enable us to achieve more than what we have committed at the Paris Climate Agreement. Another feature of the 10 proposals is that they are all climate mitigation actions and no climate adaptation actions, although both mitigation and adaptation are mentioned in the motion. Probably as a result of that, population and forest were left out in the proposals, or at least the proposals that I've seen. Climate defense was mentioned in Proposal 8, but there was no proposal on how we can defend ourselves against climate change. Adapting to climate change will require many natural and man-made solutions, the so-called green and grey solutions, such as protecting and restoring forests and wetlands to reduce heat and flooding risks, as well as building physical infrastructures such as dikes to prevent sea level rise and canals to mitigate flooding. Having a smaller population and retaining a larger reserve of undeveloped land can better help us to implement these solutions when the need arises. This should be the true spirit for including climate defense into our total defense, not just lip service or for education purposes. Sir, today, sustainability is not just an abstract economic or social concept. It is a necessity for human survival and the flourishing of societies. There is strong expectation that sustainability should embody all the human aspirations that the market system cannot effectively deliver. Sustainability has grown out of the painful experience that economic development comes with a heavy social cost. When the scale of environmental damage caused by pollution became a huge problem in the 1970s. When I was studying in Japan in the 1980s, there were still many victims of the Itai disease inflicted by chemical pollution in Japan. And today, sustainability is not just about localized problems, but has become a global crisis. With that knowledge, allowing the market system to dictate our path towards sustainable progress is unwise and will have dire long-term consequences. In the same way, we should not allow the market system to dictate the degree of social inequality in our society. It is just not sustainable that way. Sir, in conclusion, we should not allow immigration and excessive property demand dictate the continued deforestation of our nature resources. We express our support of the preservation of our forest. We propose that the cutting down of the Ulu Pandan forest should be put on hold immediately until we are clear what our post-COVID development roadmap will be. Sir, we support the motion with the Workers' Party's amendments. We note also that as of December 2020, at least 38 countries have already declared a state of climate emergency. And it's time that Singapore should take resolute action as well. Thank you.
Mr. Donby.
议长先生，我想向梁文辉先生提出一些澄清。我想问的是，他可否知道我们新加坡的绿化覆盖率应该是大概47%？第二点，他是从哪一个报告知道说我们的人口预估数据是大概1000万左右？第三点，我想澄清的是，对不起，以上我就有这2点，谢谢。
Mr. Leong.
好的，谢谢Member Don Wee 的发问。OK， 第一点，虽然新加坡我国有超过40%的绿化涵盖率，但是其中有很多是我们那些我们在建造的这个绿化，所以呢，我们本来的那个自然的绿化已经遗失很多了，所以我们应该努力的去保留这些本来是我们国家的那个自然的绿化，这是第一点。第二点，关于我刚才所说的1000万，只是根据我们现在的人口的增加率而推算出来的一个数字，而不是说我从哪一个文件里面读到的一个数据。所以这个是我以这个增加这个人口的增加率来推算出来的一个数字。谢谢。
谢谢梁先生的回应。作为选区议员，如我的同僚所面对的，我们有很多年轻的居民都告诉我们说，他们申请 BTO flat 那些主屋都等了很久，所以根据梁先生的回复，是不是说我们的建屋发展局应该建少点主屋，然后不会砍掉更多的树？谢谢。
好，谢谢Don 议员的那个发问啊。我觉得现在的 BTO 市场的那个紧迫状态，不只是因为我们的我们没有很快的把我们那些自然的绿化砍掉，是因为这个主屋这个发展局那边的那个政策，我觉得他们可以在各方面做一些调整。现在的这个 BTO 这一方面的这个需求，它现在是增加了，所以我们这个发展局那边是不是可以加快的把一些主屋建起来？因为现在的地已经是有了，不等于说现在我们把这个森林把它砍掉，就立刻会变成现在的 BTO 的这个单位。所以呢，这是两码事，所以我们应该了解到这一点。谢谢。